Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's Dux Soup webinar. Today's topic is how to get started with Dux Soup Turbo. The head of professional services, Giles Garnett, will show the key features of Turbo today. We also have a live chat that is being monitored by me, Jen, the head of customer support. And at the end of the webinar, Giles will be answering to some of your questions that you will post during the webinar. Once again, thank you for joining us today, and let's start our webinar.
Hi everyone, good morning, good afternoon or good evening to everyone joining today's Dux Soup webinar. That's either live or recorded. I'm aware that a lot of people play these after the event, as it were. Once again, very grateful for you joining us, and I hope you're all safe and well during these times. Just to introduce myself to those who are new to Dux Soup, my name is Giles Garnett. I am Head of Professional Services here at Dux Soup, and I've been presenting these webinars for Dux Soup for the last 7 months or so. If you require additional support or consultancy through our booster calls or technical calls, I'm currently running those and providing additional support as and where needed. Now, as a follow-on from the webinar 2 weeks ago, which covered the pro version of Dux Soup, the topic of today's webinar is how to get started with Dux Soup Turbo. And now, because this is covering the Turbo product, I'm going to make a hopefully not too big assumption that you will mostly have a certain level of familiarity with the product. So I don't want to spend too much time going over all the basic settings with regards to Dux Soup. And I will touch on some of the more critical items, which I feel always need to be mentioned, mainly around LinkedIn account activity and safety. And as usual, there'll be a mix of a few slides and some live demonstration. And hopefully the technology is cooperating today so that everything goes smoothly. Yeah, hopefully you can all hear me okay as well. So while I'm presenting and talking, as my colleague mentioned just now, Jin will be doing her best to answer your questions on the web chat. Please do try to keep the questions on topic so that they can be useful for the rest of the audience. If you have other questions, then that can always be raised via the normal Dux Soup support pages. And where appropriate, if there are more questions, then there'll be opportunity for questions and answers at the end of the webinar. So, very basically, from a high level, if we talk about Dux Soup functionality, when you're using Dux Soup in conjunction with LinkedIn, Dux Soup gives you the ability to automate many of your activities in LinkedIn, utilizing the functionality with Dux Soup to scan or visit profiles, to organize leads using tags. Hopefully these are expressions that you're familiar with. Connect with profiles and then engage or re-engage with prospects as you go through and carry out your automated actions. Now, as some of you may have already noticed, the latest version of Dux Soup was made available in the Chrome store either early today or late last night, I think. It's version 7.3.7, just a minor update addressing some issues that some users had seen. And I'll show you where to go to check what version you're running when I go to the live demo shortly. So the two main items of functionality we think about when we're talking about the Turbo product are, we sort of from a high level, we talk about workflow integration and automated follow-ups. So what do we mean by these? By workflow integration, we mean giving you the ability to integrate your LinkedIn lead generation activities with whatever other systems you're using and automate the data flow between these systems. So, for example, by using the webhooks, data can automatically be transferred using a system such as Zapier or Integromat to any number of places, perhaps Google Sheets or your CRM system. And in conjunction with the other functionality, so the message bridge and the remote control, Dux Soup actions can be captured or triggered. And I will show you some one or two high-level examples later when I get to the demo. When we talk about automated follow-ups, Dux Soup gives you the ability to send automated, customized follow-up messages over a prescribed period of time. So these messages, as I say, can be customized, and you can have a drip feed of up to 5 automated follow-up messages. And you can delay the timescales with each of those messages up to 31 days from the moment the system recognizes the connection acceptance. What I'll do now is I will go into a live demo, and I will show you how to configure your automated follow-ups and touch on some of the various things that come up as questions from our users as we go. So hopefully you can all see my screen okay. And if I now go to my Dux Soup icon here and I go to my options button, very quickly before I go any further, just to reiterate what version you're using, if you click here and you go to your extensions, then here under the extensions you can check to see what version we're running, and you can see here Dux Soup for automation for LinkedIn automation 7.3.7. So I have the latest. If you don't have the latest and you check here, you have the update button here, and that can force the system to update you to the latest available version that's on the Chrome store. Yes.
Able to zoom in. We still have. I can see blurry screen.
Oh, that's too big. I think there we go. Is that any better? Yes,
it's a little bit better. Thank you.
Okay. So my cunning plan of using only one screen this week doesn't seem to have improved the technology. Oh well, we'll keep trying different things. Okay, so we've gone to a Dux Soup icon, and we've gone to the options page here. And this is where we can configure all of the automated actions that can be carried out when carrying out visits with Dux Soup. And as I mentioned here, one of the key functionalities of Dux Soup Turbo Edition is the automated follow-up messages here. And what we can see here is a number of different options. First thing to notice is that you can actually configure here up to 5 messages. And you can customize your message using the same markers that are available. Where are we? Here we go. So these markers here, the first name, middle name, last name, title, company name, etc., all of those markers are applicable in your drip feed automated follow-up messages that you can compose. So yeah, you have this ability to send up to 5 messages. Now, when you turn this functionality on, you will notice that the message bridge and the remote control functions are used, and we'll come on to that very shortly, and I'll show you where you can check all of that. And that's basically the back end, the functionality within Dux Soup allowing all of these automated actions to happen. So what I've done here is I've got a couple of automated messages queued up here, for which I've put in some information here. One thing to remember is that when you send a initial connection request to somebody, so we go back up here and we go to the 2nd and 3rd degree, and I will zoom in a bit more in case it's not very clear. Hopefully that's better. So when you're sending your connection request, you're limited to only 300 characters. Once somebody is a 1st degree connection, and so that's these follow-up messages at the moment that somebody accepts your invitation, these automated follow-up messages get queued, and the scope for sending your message is much greater, because you can send a message with up to 3,000 characters here. So here, as you can see, I've configured 2 messages to go here in my automated flow. So you can configure up to 5 and change that accordingly. It's very intuitive. So yeah, you would carry out your prospecting for your new contacts. You would have your target audience. You would set up your connection request message. You would then configure your automated follow-up messages. And then the one thing to consider is your delay. It's a very key item when considering how to approach your follow-up strategy. As you can see here, you are able to customize the delays up to 31 days. You can change these. They are completely configurable. Now, this is a minimum time. So how this works is that at the moment somebody accepts your connection request, that message, that connection acceptance is picked up by Dux Soup, and at the next moment that it is able to send a message, it will do, after the delay has been timed. So from the moment that the acceptance is your invitation is accepted, sorry, falling over my words here, the clock for each of these messages starts. So the one thing you want to make sure is that you are comfortable with all of the delays that are here, and that you're also consider the way you have set up your planner. Messages will only be sent when the planner allows Dux Soup to be active. So if I just flick across here to the planner, if you're not familiar with that, this is how you can define when you are happy for Dux Soup to carry out actions on your behalf. So that's also a limiting factor as to when messages will be sent. So if somebody accepts your connection request at midnight, for example, and your Dux Soup robot is asleep, it won't be sent until the following day when it hits the green time zone, as it were, in your planner. So yeah, you can make sure, therefore, that messages are only being sent during working hours, for example. So yeah, this is an entirely customizable message. You've got 3,000 characters here. And what happens is that these messages are all queued on the servers at the moment that somebody accepts your connection request. And those messages are queued until such a point there is some sort of human interaction or a response from your new connection. And at that moment, the robot picks up that response and blacklists that profile, and so no further automated follow-up messages are sent. It's very key that we have that mechanism in place, because it would seem a little strange after somebody's replied to one of your messages that they continue to get some sort of automated message. And at that stage, we would expect some sort of a manual conversation or an appointment to be made, or to take that sale prospect to the next level in your sales funnel. So I mentioned just now, when I turn this on, what we will see is we'll then go to the Connect tab, and I'll show you how the message bridge and the remote control functionality work. So if I just very quickly here go to the Connect tab, you can see at the moment everything here is off. What we'll see additional windows open as well periodically, and that is the behavior associated with the message bridge. The message bridge is essential in the functionality to pick up new messages and new connections to make sure that everything is flowing correctly. So if I now go back to the Actions tab, and I'll turn on the automated follow-up messages, and we'll see immediately the system opens up. That's Dux Soup opening up a new window to look for new messages and new connections. And if we now go back to the Connect tab here, we can see that the message bridge has been turned on, because that's checking for messages. It's checking for both my regular message box, my Sales Navigator mailbox, and it's also looking for connections, for new connections. You can configure how frequently that happens by changing the time period here. Some people, by default, I believe it's set to 10 minutes. There are quite a lot of people I've been dealing with recently who have it set at sort of more half an hour, that kind of time frame, because that's what they feel comfortable with, and they don't want a constant inconvenience of perhaps a window popping up. But that window will automatically open, look for new messages or connections, and then close very quickly again. The remote control functionality is also key to that, because that allows the messages to be sent, the messages that you have queued on the server. So those, when you turn on the automated follow-ups, these are the functionalities that will be enabled, and that explains, and there's a lot of questions about why do I keep getting these pop-ups occurring. So that's basically how the follow-ups work. What you need to remember is you can only run one campaign at a time at the moment, and you need to consider, at the moment that a connection request is accepted, it will look to see how this is configured, and that's what gets queued on the server. So if you're running a campaign, you need to be very clear as to who you're targeting and what your audience is. And at the end of a certain period, perhaps then you need to look and see where your outstanding invites are and as to whether you are going to change your strategy or change your messaging. But it's very intuitive, it's very straightforward, and it's very well documented on the Dux Soup website as well. We can show you some of those pages shortly. I'm going to turn this one off for now, and turn that one off as well. And what I'm going to now demonstrate to you is the other part of the turbo functionality, and that is the integration with other systems. So if I now go to the Connect tab and we look at the webhook functionality, if we look at the support pages, bear with me 1 second. Let's just open this and open the webhook page. So here under the webhook by example page, this is all available via the on the Dux Soup support pages. We can see here this is all clearly documented and walks through all of the different various options that we have here. But what I'm going to demonstrate to you now is how we can capture information in a Google Sheet when we carry out visits. Now, of course, this could be just a small fraction of your workflow, but just to show you this in action. So when you look at the webhook functionality, you have the various different events that you can capture. You can capture a visit event, a scan, action, message events, remote controls. What I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to create what we call a zap using Zapier in order to capture some visit events and populate a Google Sheet, so we can see how the information flows, and we can see that then appearing in my Google Sheet. I've already prepared here a Google Sheet where I've identified a few fields of data that I want to capture. I'm going to try and capture the ID of the individual profile within LinkedIn. That's a unique number within LinkedIn. First name, last name, full name, their job title, their LinkedIn URL, if it's available, their email address, the timestamp as to when I last visited, and also if I've got any Dux Soup tags that I've applied to that particular profile. So that's the data that I'm going to try and capture when I carry out some visits shortly. So the next thing I need to do is build my Zap. Now, I'm going to demonstrate this in Zapier now. Next week, there are other options available other than Zapier, and next week we have somebody, I'll come on to that later, going to demonstrate using webhooks in Integromat. That's another option that is available to people. There are some other things as well going on, which I'll come to later, where we can do some direct integration with Google Sheets as well. But for now, I'm going to show you how to do this within Zapier. So here I am in Zapier. I'm going to make a new Zap. And what I'm going to try here is to capture visit data. So every time I visit a profile in LinkedIn, I would like to populate that prescribed data within my Google Sheet. So first of all, I need to get my unique URL that the data is going to be sent to. So I need to choose a webhook here within Zapier, and this under here is where I need to capture a catch hook. And this will give me a unique URL. Here, this is my custom webhook URL, which hopefully there we go. We'll copy that one to clipboard. And I will paste this into here. Now, I need to turn this one on. And here I'm choosing to only capture visit data. There are different scenarios where you would want to use different events depending on what you're doing with your webhook. But for this simple example, I'm going to use a visit event. Now, in order to have some sample data to work from and to be able to populate our spreadsheet, I need to be able to have some sample data. And now, since the 7.3 update, I think it was, we have the ability to just send a sample to our prescribed webhook. So there we are. We'll send our sample data across, and now hopefully we should see that sample data here appear in Zapier. And there we go. Probably need to zoom in a fraction on this one so that everyone can see that nice and clearly. So what we have here is we've actually got two sets of data come through. Now, when you have a visit event in LinkedIn, when Dux Soup opens a profile, there are two different events that occur. One is a create action, and the next one is an update action. So the first one here, you look at here, we can see the event is a create action. We're always interested in the second one, which is the update here, the update event, because when Dux Soup opens a profile, it's the second phase of the opening of the profile which captures the contact information of the profile. So in order to populate our data, I'm going to use the request B because that's the update. So there we are, we'll do that. We'll scroll down and we will then continue. Now, there are various different ways that you can do this, and I'm going to do this as the most straightforward way as possible. There are ways you could do this with paths and populating different worksheets depending on certain criteria, whether or not you've got an email address, all that kind of stuff, whether it's a first degree connection, a second degree connection, third degree connection, etc. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to put in a very simple filter here to make sure that I am only capturing update events. So here I'm going to choose that I only continue with the event. Exactly matches. Let's make sure it's all lowercase. There we go. Update. There we go. We'll continue. For some reason I'm getting an error. Oh, okay. There we go. So we have our catch hook. We've now put in a filter saying we're only interested in capturing update events. We're done editing with that. And now we would like to populate our Google Sheet. If I now go to Google Sheets. Now, what you need to remember is that you can do this with any system. So if, for example, you're using HubSpot or another CRM for your customer database, then you could check within Zapier, see if that's integrated, and you could then forward this information into your CRM. For simplicity, I'm going to do this within Google Sheets. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set this up so that I don't get a lot of duplicate data. So rather than just creating a new row straight away, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look up a spreadsheet row first. So I'm going to have a lookup first, and then if that particular record doesn't exist, I'm going to ask Dux Soup or Zapier to populate the row with the new data. So I've chosen my Google account, and now I need to define where my Google Sheet is. So I'll go to my Google Drive, and hopefully it's the top one. There we are, Turbo Demo, and then my worksheet. This is the rather long-winded way of doing this, but it's pretty intuitive. So now we need to have a lookup value. Now, if you remember back to my worksheet, my spreadsheet, the lookup value, sorry, no, I need the lookup column first, don't I? The lookup column will be the unique identifier against each profile from LinkedIn. So I'll use the ID column as my unique value. My unique value then comes from the catch hook. And if we just put in here ID, and we have a look for the data ID field. There we go. There it is. So this ID number here is unique to this particular LinkedIn profile that I visited. I don't need a supporting column, but what I do want to do is if that lookup fails and there's a row doesn't exist, I would like Google Sheets to populate a new row. And this is where I now need to match the data from my webhook into my worksheet. So now I go and I scroll down a little further. There we go, data ID in the first field. And now I have to go through the slightly painful experience of populating each of these. So we go to the catch hook each time. That's where my data is coming from. So I want my first name there. And then I want the last name. Again, we need to just go through this each time. I apologize that this takes a little bit of time. It's important to map the correct data to the right place. Just as an example here, just to demonstrate, you can put more than one set of data into a field. So if we want to put full name in here, we can put in the first name, we can put in a space, and then we can put in the last name. Job title may be interesting. You could put all sorts, and any of the data that comes up here from the webhook could be applicable to you. Depends on your circumstances and what data you're trying to capture. I will capture here as well the LinkedIn URL of the individual. That's the company profile. There we go, data profile. Now, email address. This is one whereby you need to be aware that you have a much better chance of having access to an email address if someone is a first degree connection. So that's whereby you could put a filter in, for example, to only capture email addresses from first degree visits, that sort of thing. An email address is usually required by a CRM in order to populate your CRM. Let's go down, there we are, data email. And then, now I'm going to capture just a timestamp as to when my last visit was, just for completeness. And also I'm going to add tags. Now this is all sample data that we've that is fixed data for sample, but the timestamp is appropriate. If we scroll down here, there we are, data my tags, and those are Dux Soup tags. If you put personalized tags in there, then those would also appear. Bit long-winded, excuse my me falling over my tongue there. And now if I press test and review, searching for or creating a row, it looks like it's done it. Let's go back here. There we go. We have our row populated with all of the prescribed data that I wanted. So what I'm going to do now is, while we're here, that's all good, we're going to turn on this zap. There we go. So this zap is now turned on. Here we go. We've got our test zap, it's on. And what I'm going to do now is I've carried out a brief search earlier, a very simple search. I'm not going to carry out any automated actions. I'm not going to send any invitations. Let's double check, make sure everything is turned off from that point of view. All I'm going to do is I'm going to tag a few profiles with Turbo Demo as I visit them. But just to be able to prove the concept here, I'm now going to ask the Dux Soup robot to carry out some test visits on my behalf. If I now press go to my Dux Soup options, I've gone to my search result, and I'm now going to press there, and we're going to carry out our visits. Oh, that didn't work. I need to zoom out a bit, I think. Let's try that again. Visit profiles. Okay, there we go. I'll zoom back in because I'm aware. There we go. So I've now asked Dux Soup to go off and visit some profiles, and I have the robot set to a fairly slow speed. I find that in order to, when I'm doing a lot of demonstrations and that sort of thing, then I often need the robot to be running faster. But by default, I run the robot slowly or on a random speed. Remember that safety is absolutely paramount importance with regard to your LinkedIn account. So you need to consider how much activity you are carrying out with automation. Of course, we want the automated activities to look as much as possible like human activities. Therefore, you need to be aware of your of the speed of the robot is running, how many profiles you're visiting, and how many messages you're sending out, how many invitations you're sending out per day. Also, remember to make sure you keep an eye on your outstanding invitations and make sure you delete them when they reach a certain level. As you can see now, Dux Soup is carrying out an auto visit on my behalf. It's carrying out a visit to the person who's at the top of this list. It's got profile, it's opened up their contact details. And now Dux Soup is going to be doing that. And hopefully, if I now go to, there we go. As we were talking, we can see now that it's starting to populate my Google Sheet as it goes through. Now, what we will also see is that because this first person is not a first degree connection, it's unlikely I'm going to pick up an email address from them. And what we can now see is that Dux Soup is going through, carrying out auto visits on my behalf. And by setting up a very simple zap, I'm populating the data in my spreadsheet. That could equally be me sending out connection requests to people that I'm capturing. It could be me populating my CRM, all sorts of different possibilities. But the important thing is that by using the connect functionality here in conjunction with the webhooks and a tool such as Zapier, say there are other options available such as Integromat, then you are able to automatically send data that way. There are many other options available with regards the configuration of webhooks and the different sorts of data that you can capture, and all that information is available here on the Dux Soup support page. If you look at the webhook by example document, you can see here exactly all of the different types of events that you can capture, and further information about the payload, the data that comes through, and the various options as to what you can gather, and so there. So that kind of summarizes the functionality there. What you'll see as well is if you're using, for example, if you're trying to capture information from your new connections, that would come in as a message event. So you would probably then want to create a second webhook where you would be capturing a message event and then triggering an auto visit to your new connection to then pick up their email address, for example, to then populate your CRM. There is various documents on our support pages and also on the blogs, which walk you through all of these steps individually. Hopefully that's well documented. As I say, our support team are available as well to take you through all of that. Now, while I've been talking, I suspect we may have been carrying out a few more visits, so we can probably see here some more data being populated, possibly. It's ticking through there, and as it goes through, then it'll continue to populate that data as it goes. Okay, if I now pop back to the slides very briefly. So go back here, and so we've talked about the workflow integration. We've talked about the how you can use the Connect tab and the webhook functionality to integrate into your other systems. We've talked about the automated follow-ups. We've gone through the customized messages. We've talked about up to 5 follow-up messages and the delays of up to 31 days from connection acceptance. Using the webhook functionality to enable data exchange with other systems and automatically capture data and automatically trigger actions. You can trigger auto visits and that sort of stuff, messages from outside of Dux Soup and outside of LinkedIn. Let's have a quick look. So as I said, yeah, Zapier is not your only option here with regards to integrations. Integromat is another possibility there, and there is indeed now a possibility to connect Dux Soup directly with Google Sheets, which we've been documenting using the webhook functionality within Google Sheets. That's currently, well, that has just been documented and will be available as a blog post within the next few hours. I had a sneak preview earlier today of that document, and that'll be published on the website very shortly. And then coming within the next few weeks, something that we're very excited about here at Dux Soup is a direct integration between Dux Soup and Pipedrive CRM, which we're very excited about. Looking forward to getting more details on that in the coming days, and it's expected releases within the next couple of weeks. I don't have a specific date as to when that will be available, but we're very much looking forward to that. Yes, so those are some of the upcoming things that we have to look forward to as well. I think that's everything I was going to talk about. Do we have any questions, Jen?
it was not as busy as the previous webinars. So the first question would be, do I need a paid Zapier account to use with Turbo?
There are various different what's the word I'm looking for? Subscriptions to Zapier. I don't have all of the information available here, but where are we? Let's have a look. If you go to the Zapier page, there are various different plans available. Yeah, it depends how much activity you're carrying out. Yeah, it's basically it depends how busy you are, and it depends on the number of tasks that you're using. So each time data is sent to a webhook, that will use, depending on the complexity of the task, complexity of your Zap, that will use so many tasks. So yeah, you need to think about what's applicable for you and try it out. Integromat is priced quite differently. I don't have the details of that, but yeah, it also depends on the complexity of the Zaps that you're wishing to run. So, for example, I know that the paths option within Zapier is only available, I think, when you get up to a professional or business model. I think it's not available at the starter level, I don't think. But you can see here, yeah, you can configure how many tasks that you require, and then they're priced accordingly. But yeah, it very much depends how busy you are. I mean, always remember, you can download the data from Dux Soup into Google Sheets and look at things that way. There are lots of different possibilities. And yeah, as I say, as I just mentioned, the direct integration with Google Sheets is very interesting and something I'm going to be looking at over the coming days as well. So yeah, Zapier isn't necessarily cheap, but it depends on how many tasks you're running and how busy you are and how much data you're flowing through that particular system. Okay.
An optimal delay between messages, what would you recommend?
Okay, yeah, this is a discussion I have quite often on booster and technical calls with people. I think that's very much down to your personal philosophy, down to perhaps cultural expectations, depending on where you are in the world, and also the industry in which you're in. So it's very difficult for me to answer that specifically. I think what's normal is that what I see predominantly is that within 24 hours or so, you usually see some sort of an acknowledgement of appreciation for connecting, just some sort of an acknowledgement that you're happy to connect with somebody. Thank you for accepting my connection request. And then a number of days, and that could be anything between 2 and maybe 5 days later, maybe sending further information to try and trigger some sort of a response. It's about building a connection with your target audience, and also making sure that it's not just a one-way flow of you trying to push things. It's about building a relationship, and yeah, I've seen all sorts of different strategies used by different people in different industries. Perhaps I think within the recruitment industry, I tend to see things being more of a time critical and things being sent quicker, follow-up messages tending to go out a little quicker than some other industries, which should we say there's not necessarily the time pressure to get a candidate into place. So there are lots of different possibilities, but yeah, my one of the recommendations would be, yeah, some sort of an acknowledgement within 24 hours or so, appreciating a new connection, thanking them for connecting, and then some days later, that next sort of connection, trying to make a connection with your new contact in order to start a conversation. Okay.
Question: can you use paragraph spacing in messages?
Yes, paragraph spacing should work. You just however many lines you need to put in there. Yeah, that should just follow the formatting within the text box that you have that you've put your text into.
Another question would be for the follow-up messages of up to 4 sequences, does that run in the cloud, or must I have my computer on so that Dux Soup can do that?
So the messages are queued on the servers at the time that a connection request is accepted. Those messages are queued on the server. However, they are only sent when the remote control functionality is turned on and enabled and Dux Soup is running on your computer. That's correct, isn't it, Jen? I think I answered that correctly. Double check with the head of support. Yes, so your computer does need to be on, and Dux Soup needs to be enabled insofar as it's not turned off, and yeah, the planner needs to be green for messages to be sent.
Yes. Another question. So this means that entire 5-message sequence can only last for about 31 days. Is that correct?
I believe so. Is that correct, Jen?
I think it stays in the queue for 7 days.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's it. That's the only
Those are all
questions
the questions.
I have. Yes, that's
Excellent.
it.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Very quickly onto our upcoming webinars. I've mentioned it a few times already. So next Tuesday, so not in 2 weeks' time, next Tuesday, the 2nd of June, we have Thomas from MA Templates going to be presenting for us, looking at connecting Dux Soup Turbo to your CRM using Integromat templates. I had a look at this the other week. There's a number of templates being put together in the Integromat space, which I'm very interested about. It's similar. It's a similar sort of philosophy to Zapier, similar sort of environment, but it is different. So I'm looking forward to Thomas, who's been doing a lot of work in that area, presenting that. And then in 2 weeks' time, on the 9th of June, we've got Tyron, who is going to be presenting how to double your sales funnel with Dux Soup. Another interesting topic, looking at the marketing side of things. So again, a new presenter for us, a guest presenter, which will be good to hear a different voice and some first-hand experience. You can sign up for all of these upcoming webinars via the normal links. Just as always, just to promote the booster and technical sessions. The booster sessions are primarily targeted at new users, people who are trying to get everything set up first of all. These are tailored sessions. When you make your booking, you can put in your requirements and we can make sure we're as prepared as possible. Technical sessions are really focusing on how to get the most out of the Turbo product and making sure that all of your processes are lined up correctly and working correctly, and all your data flows are working in the correct way. We can help you with configuring and setting things up, and making sure that it's fully understood why certain things are happening and why data is appearing where it should be and everything like that. So those are available via the website. Our normal standard links, if everything is available via our homepage. From the various drop-down boxes, you can get to the blogs, the webinars, the tutorials, the support pages, etc., etc. So yeah, please use those resources. They're there to help support you guys and make your Dux Soup experience as positive as possible. That's it from me. I'll hand back to Jin to say goodbye, and I'll speak to you in a few weeks' time. I will be on the calls the next couple of weeks, helping out with the chat. But yeah, I get a couple of weeks off from webinars because we have some guest speakers, but I'm sure I'll speak to you all soon. I'll hand it back to Jin.
Very nice webinar. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending. And if you have any further questions, please contact info@duxsoup.com, and we will be very happy to advise you further. So stay safe. Thank you very much, and see you soon.